The silent death of Lake Nyos. The evening of August 21, 1986, began like any other in the lush, green volcanic hills of northwestern Cameroon. In the village of Nyas, families gathered around cooking fires, children played in the cooling twilight, and cattle lowed in their pens. Above them sat Lake Nyos, a stunning, deep blue body of water nestled in the crater of an extinct volcano. It was a picture of serenity. But beneath that glass-like surface, a monster was waking up. There was no smoke, no fire, and no boiling lava. This was a different kind of eruption. It was invisible, odorless, and by the time the sun rose the next morning, nearly everyone in the valley would be dead. Nyas was a place of vibrant life. The volcanic soil was rich and fertile, supporting a community of farmers and herders. Life followed the rhythm of the seasons. The lake, though deep and mysterious, was a central part of the landscape, a quiet neighbor. The people of the region had legends about bad lakes, stories passed down through generations about waters that rose up to swallow people. But on this humid Thursday evening, those stories seemed like distant myths. No one could have known that the deep, still waters of Lake Nyos were under immense pressure, holding back a secret that had been building for decades. The strange night of August 21, 1986. At approximately 9 p.m., the silence of the night was shattered by a low, rumbling sound. Some survivors later described it as a distant explosion. Others said it sounded like a heavy freight train rushing through the valley. In the village of Subum, a few miles away, people stepped out of their huts, looking toward the lake. They saw a strange white mist rising from the water's surface, illuminated by the moon. Then, a peculiar smell like rotten eggs or gunpowder wafted through the air. And then, the wind began to blow. Not a normal wind, but a heavy, warm gust that seemed to roll down the hillsides from the lake. In the darkness, the people of Nyas began to feel a sudden, overwhelming sleepiness. Some collapsed where they stood. Mothers fell while holding their children. Fires flickered and died, not because the wood ran out, but because the very air had lost its ability to support a flame. When the lake released death, what was happening? The lake hadn't exploded with fire. It had burped. Deep within the lake, a massive bubble of carbon dioxide had suddenly lost its stability. Like a giant bottle of soda being shaken and then uncapped, the lake released a colossal cloud of gas, an estimated 1.6 million tons of it. Because CO2 is denser than air, it didn't dissipate into the atmosphere. Instead, it hugged the ground like a lethal, invisible blanket. It surged over the rim of the crater and spilled down the mountainsides at 45 miles per hour. It flowed into the valleys, displacing the oxygen-rich air. For those in its path, there was no escape. You couldn't see it. You couldn't smell it. You simply breathed it in, felt a momentary surge of confusion and dizziness, and then lost consciousness as your brain was starved of oxygen. In the span of a few minutes, the silent death had claimed entire families. The morning of silence. When the sun rose on August 22nd, the valley was hauntingly still. There was no birdsong. There was no sound of barking dogs or lowing cattle. Joseph Nguyen, one of the few survivors, woke up after being unconscious for over 9 hours. He found his daughter dead beside him. When he tried to speak, his voice was a rasp. He stepped outside and found a scene from a nightmare. His neighbors lay in the streets, looking as if they were merely napping, but their skin was cold. As rescuers eventually reached the area, they were met with a sight that defied logic. There were no signs of a struggle, no wounds, and no blood. In one hut, a family was found sitting around a table, their spoons still in their hands, frozen in time. In the fields, hundreds of cattle lay dead in perfect rows. The official death toll was staggering: 1,746 people, and over 3,500 livestock had perished in a single night. Scientists searched for answers. The world was horrified. Early theories suggested a terrorist attack or a secret chemical weapons test. However, when geologists arrived at the lake, they found the water had turned from a crystalline blue to a deep, rusty red. Large waves had battered the shores, and the lake level had dropped significantly. The mystery deepened. If it wasn't a bomb, What could kill so many people so quickly without leaving a trace? Scientists began taking samples from the depths of the lake. They discovered that the water at the bottom was incredibly rich in dissolved carbon dioxide. This gas didn't come from the air. It was seeping up from the Earth's mantle, through the volcanic floor of the lake. Normally, the weight of the upper layers of water keeps this gas dissolved at the bottom. But something, perhaps a small landslide or a minor tremor, had disturbed the balance. Understanding the limnic eruption. This rare and terrifying phenomenon is known as a limnic eruption, or a lake burst. For a limnic eruption to occur, a lake must be deep, still, and situated over a volcanic source. Over decades, the bottom of Lake Nyos had become supersaturated with CO2. The water was essentially a ticking time bomb. When the layers of the lake were disturbed that August night, a chain reaction occurred. As the bottom water rose, the pressure on it decreased, allowing the gas to escape as bubbles. These bubbles pushed more water up, which released even more gas. This created a massive, self-sustaining column of rising gas and water that erupted like a geyser. The white mist survivors saw was the CO2 condensing water vapor in the air. The rotten egg smell was likely small amounts of sulfur, though CO2 itself is odorless. It was a perfect, natural silent killer. Could it happen again? The tragedy of Lake Nyos forced the international community to act. Scientists identified other killer lakes in the region, most notably Lake Manoon and the massive Lake Kivu on the border of Rwanda and the Congo. To prevent a repeat of the 1986 disaster, engineers installed a series of degassing pipes in Lake Nyos. These pipes act like a controlled straw, allowing the gas to bleed off slowly and safely into the atmosphere before it can build up to dangerous levels. Today, the lake is safer than it has been in centuries. However, nature is never entirely predictable. Lake Kivu, which is 2,000 times larger than Nyas, holds enough gas to threaten millions of people. The silent death remains a lurking shadow in the geological record. Conclusion. The story of Lake Nyos is a sobering reminder of the power hidden within our planet. We often think of nature as either a provider or a beautiful backdrop for our lives, but the Earth operates on its own timeline, governed by laws of physics and chemistry. On that night in 1986, a beautiful blue lake became a graveyard, proving that the most dangerous threats aren't always the ones we can see coming. As the survivors moved back into the valley years later, they did so with a newfound respect and a lingering fear for the silent giant that sits above them, forever exhaling the breath of the earth.